persuasion, right? Persuasion, the secret psychology of persuasion. I'm relaunching a couple courses. People have asked me, and I've talked to a lot of people. The first one up is the secret psychology of persuasion. I'll talk about the course and where you can look at it if you want to do it. The kickoff thing is in November 19th on a Saturday. The next course after that will be about self-confidence. But these two are interrelated. Believe it or not, the secret psychology of persuasion and self-confidence are related, right? And so let's talk a little bit about that. The number one thing about persuasion in general, if you go to learn this technology, these skills, the number one thing is it's about personal transformation, right? Because people start learning persuasion usually to sell more products, get people to do things, to get a date, maybe improve their family relationships, whatever it is you want to do with persuasion, great. But as people get into it, they begin to discover the first person you have to persuade is yourself, right? That's the underlying key, because it's all about, at that level, personal transformation, right? And the people that really get this begin to figure out that the true power of this is the personal transformation that goes with it, right? Because you have to persuade yourself whether you're going to be successful, whether you are going to do sales, whether you're going to be a better dad or husband or mother, whatever it is, right? Business first, whatever it is. First thing, you have to persuade yourself. So the techniques that you learn to persuade other people, you begin to use to persuade yourself, right? And that's the part a lot of people forget. They want to take this stuff and begin influencing others and persuading others without influencing or persuading themselves. And that's usually when it crashes and burns. We see that when people take sales classes, hypnosis classes, NLP classes. They don't fix themselves first or use it on themselves, so they don't get that personal transformation, which gives you the power to influence other people, right? So that's really what's kind of interesting, right? So think about, how can you persuade yourself? What areas of your life do you need to persuade? Whether it's success, whether it's I'm going to use this information, whatever it happens to be, right? What are you going to do to persuade yourself, right? And in what areas? Is it your motivation? Is it your business success, financial success, physical success, whatever it is, right? Because if you don't, even if you learn this information, you begin to say the information doesn't work, and you throw basically the baby out with the bathwater, right? And so it's kind of interesting when you think about it, right? I'll be going into this in more detail in the class, The Secret Psychology of Persuasion, right? But I want you to think about that. Now, it begins to happen. The first thing we have to think about when we think about persuasion, there's a couple models out there. One of them is the systemic model. And basically what that says is life is so complex, and our language and our vernacular is so complex, it's hard to use, right? And when that happens, we look for shortcuts, right? We look for shortcuts. Your brain looks for shortcuts. That's what symbols do. That's what certain things do, right? Because and if you know how to decode the shortcuts in someone's head, it gets them out of the conscious blocks that you have. The research kind of says the longer someone that you're trying to persuade or talk to, the longer they stay in conscious analytical factors of their mind, the less likely they are to go along with whatever it is you're trying to persuade or influence them with, right? You want them out of their conscious mind as quickly as possible. And to do that, you have to use these shortcuts, right? To get them out of because life is so complex, you don't want to think about it, basically is what happens. I mean, there's too much to think about, right? And this is where the term I think we would get into, which is you fall into paralysis by analysis. You think about it, you think about it, you think about it, right? And the longer, if you're trying to persuade somebody, whether it's in person, in an interaction, or whether it's online with your videos and your text, you want to use the shortcuts to develop, to access the subconscious parts of their mind, right? And this is so important that it can't be stressed enough. You want them out of this conscious part of their mind, right? And honestly, if you really get good at persuasion, you begin to want to get the people that want to overanalyze everything and debate everything to the nth degree and all that. You don't want them as clients. You don't want them in your system as much, right? You want to get that. You want to get them into their emotions, into their subconscious mind, right? And the way you do that is by accessing their imagination, right? And there's a secret that you can do, I'll talk about at the end, with their imagination, right? That will guarantee, almost guarantee, yes, I guarantee, ladies and gentlemen, guarantee, if you do that, I could just throw a number out there. I'll just say much, 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 much more likely to go along with the persuasion that you're doing. It has to do with their imagination, if you can access their imagination. Because the things that accesses your imagination is the same thing that gets you out of this complex, systematic part of your mind. So it gets them to activate, right? By talking about, number one, is emotion, right? Right? You get them into their emotions or their feelings. Most people drop out of their conscious mind into their body, right? And so you really want to do that, right? You really want to have fun and do that, right? And, you know, in the NLP model I use, which honestly, I came up with a person named Billy Schilling, Captain Billy Schilling, which we call it the hierarchy of thought model, which goes with what we're saying, right? And the hierarchy of thought is very simply put that, you know, you go through levels when you're doing anything, right? You go through levels. The first level of a hierarchy of thought is you're in an action, right? When you're in an action, right? And when you're in an action, you're not thinking about anything, you're doing something. When you're really into an action, you're caught up in it, right? And it could be an emotion, right? If you're in an emotion or a feeling, you're in it, right? Right? So if you think about it, if someone was angry, I use that a lot, right? When you're angry, it's like, I'm angry. You're in the state of anger, right? And when you're in that state, you can't see anything else. You can't do anything else. You're in that state and you're locked down, right? You're locked into that state. It could be anything. And I just saw it where I was at the airport coming back from a recent trip, and there's a person there, they're on their cell phone talking, and you could really, and they were actually holding it. So they're really into the conversation, looking down, talking, looking that way, talking, whatever, probably accessing that part of their mind. But what's kind of funny, they literally walked into a pillar, right? And of course, like all of us, what's the first thing that happens if you walk into a pillar or a wall or a glass door, right?
You look around like, who
Yeah,
hit me?
you want to know, did you get busted? Did anybody see me do this, right? You know, so that's what the person did. They just went, and then they kept walking. But they were so into what the action they were doing, they weren't aware of the outside world, right? We get that perceptual blindness, if you will. You can't see anything around you, right? So there are times, if you're going to use persuasion, one of the things you need to begin to decode is, do you want them in this state? Right? It's not a bad thing. It's not a good thing. It's just the way it is, right? But the next level of thought with this is, you know, the first level is you're thinking about it, right? You're thinking about the action or the emotion, right? You're thinking about the first thing. It's like, you ever been angry? And then you pull back and go, what am I really angry? Right? Of course, those of us that do weight loss hypnosis, one of the things I don't know if they still teach it in that, I do when I teach it, but is pulling them out of the emotion or the feeling of false hunger, right? And we've all had that. If you've ever opened the refrigerator and go, what do I want? As you're looking in the refrigerator, you are not hungry. There's something else going on, right? If you're really hungry, when you're really hungry and you open the fridge, you'll grab whatever, oh, what's the quickest thing I can eat? whatever it happens to be, right? But if you pull back from that, so if you ever get in that situation where you're looking at it, you're like, what do I want to eat? And then if you go, am I really hungry? I'm bored. There's nothing new on TV tonight. I'm not going to jump back on the computer, whatever it is. So it pulls you out of the experience where you can make a decision. It's the first level intervention of NLP and in persuasion. And then you can put it into a better action. Fine, right? So, and so the third level of thought, and this level is where where you're in this complex part of your mind. You're thinking about things. And when you're thinking about things, it's hard to take action, right? And the third level of thought is you're thinking about thinking, right? You begin to really analyze what's going on. What's really making me angry? What's really making me think I'm hungry? I had a fight with my spouse, and my boss yelled at me. Or this couple of years, this time last year, for some people, they weren't hungry. They were tired of the lockdown, right? If you're in a lockdown area, things like that, right? So you're thinking about. So if you realize everybody you're talking to, right, they're in one of these levels, right? And if you can, and one of the tricks we teach people, and what I'll be teaching in class, is how to use their imagination to put them into the level you want them in. Whether it's excitement or motivation or regret, whatever it is you want them in, use their imagination to get them there, right? And so that's one of the tricks. And I call it the hierarchy of thought, right? Where are you in your communication or in your state? And I can pull you out of that state and put you into a different state, lead you that way. I can't make you, but I can lead you. And whether they do or not, we'll see, right? I never say this stuff works 100%. It works a high percentage of the time, right? But the more we begin to understand that, the more fun we can have, right? The other thing, and I've just done an example of this, and everybody on this call, especially people I haven't seen for a while, you're an example of this, right? Which is, before you're going to do a communication, for a lot of us, especially in business, sales, marketing, that kind of stuff, or even in your interpersonal things, sometimes you have to prime them first, right? You have to prime them. That's what, to use my other profession, you see done brilliantly when they drop a trailer for a new movie. They're giving you a primer to see if you're interested or not. And I did this with the subconscious, this secret psychology of persuasion. I posted a few things about persuasion, about getting people to do what you want them to do and have them think it was that idea, right? And then the other day, I did a little primer on self-confidence. I did a post, right, to see if I get any action. And even if I don't get action, you're putting it out there. So then the next time, the thing about priming, if you put a post, you do a post, even an ad, right, is the next time you do it, the person that sees it is familiar with it, right? So they're more comfortable with it. I hope that makes sense to everybody, right? It's why, like in the old world marketing, they'd say, especially in radio ads, TV ads, or the old print ads, and they find it's true for, if not more so, for the internet, is you have to repeat, right? I was just talking to somebody today about that, the importance to repeat, like ads or posts or things that work, right? Because, okay, if I did a post and it was very popular, great. I could repost it in a few days or a couple of weeks, because the people that saw it, it's only going to remind them that they saw it. Oh yeah, that's interesting, all right? But then all the people that never saw it, now you're priming them to take action, right? And again, look at, like, I always think of, like I say, the movies, when they're dropping the trailers, they drop them, and try to get you excited to see the movie, right? And that's priming. It's priming the market. If you're not interested in it, who cares, right? Your ad, your post, whatever it is you're doing won't appeal to everybody. But those that do, what it begins to do, the priming puts them into an emotion. And of course, it might get them into the action of, yeah, I'm going to go see that movie, right? My wife just did it when, well, I was out of town. I got it on my phone that she bought tickets for us to go see on opening day. We always go on opening day, the very first day. Usually it's a 3 o'clock showing of the big movies, right? So we're going to go see Wakanda Forever, right? Black Panther, and it's like, because the trailers do everything we're talking about brilliantly. If you're interested, it's going to get your attention. If you're not, you're going to flip. You're not even going to pay attention. Great. And they always do a call for action, right? Get your tickets now. Tickets available on Fandango or at, Cineplex, wherever you're buying your tickets, right? They go, get your tickets now, right? And so we jump in and get our tickets. They're priming it and they're asking you, they're getting into the imagination. You imagine yourself watching the movie. And if you enjoy that, right? And I enjoy being in a movie theater, right? That's the only way I like really watching a lot of movies is in a movie theater, not sitting in my house, right? Because the dog barks, the bird screams, all the other stuff. So it's like, it's getting you to imagine. And one of the secrets of imagination is you need to get the people that you're trying to persuade in their imagination. So they're imagining using your product, watching your movie, doing whatever it is that you're going to do, because they will figure out how they're going to use it, what they're going to do with it. And then it's much more likely that they will take action, right? And I know my wife and I, we go to a movie theater, with the big seats, and they come and take order for food. It's really nice, right? And I heard Christina talk about, yeah, it's like a break. You're away from the phone and the internet and the animals, and you get a nice meal. She's already imagining, right? And so it's like she'll buy the tickets, right? And it's a prime example of priming and using the imagination. And then whatever is going to motivate you, whether it's Bruce or Michelle or Bob, whoever, if you can get them to imagine taking your product, service, or whatever it is you're doing and using it to success, then they'll fill in the blanks themselves, right? And so that's the fun part of what we're doing, right? About teaching people how to do this stuff. And that's why I decided to relaunch the Secret Psychology of Persuasion. And again, it's going to be, it's a 2-hour kickoff. I will post the link. This isn't for you guys. I will post the link below when this is up on Facebook and on YouTube. So you can go do it, right? Because I'm relaunching a few things. And so, and it's to persuade other people, but also to persuade yourself, right? Because as we're coming out of the lockdown, if you can imagine where you were a couple of years ago when things were locked down, you were kind of restricted. A lot of us went to instant regressions because as adults, probably the last time every aspect of your life was controlled was when you were an adolescent, right? You were told where you could go, what you could do, people you could talk to, and whether it was for a few months, like down here in Florida, or longer in different parts of the country, it was totally controlled. For most of us, we haven't experienced that since adolescence, right? And or for Mr. Labrie, when you were on active duty as like an E5 or below, where everything is controlled, right? So that's where you saw people react different ways, and some people went to total, oh, I agree with everything, and they began virtue shaming, as I call it. How dare you not wear a mask? How dare you do this? You had that group, probably when they were adolescents, they were the type of people that went along with the rules, trusted authority. That's a big one. They trusted the authorities, right? And then on the other, and you had this is a sliding spectrum. On the other end, you had the people who go, screw you, I'm not doing any of this, right? And these are people that at the far end of the spectrum, where I probably fall, I don't trust authority, especially the government, right? It's like, so anyway, but there was that continuum, right? And it was a good example of bad persuasion that the government did with COVID-19, in my opinion, right? At first it was good. They scared the shit out of you, right? Which gets you, fear is a great motivator. We always forget that, right? But if you don't use, but then it didn't really, it could have been handled better all the way around, right? So anyway, but what is it, right? So you want to persuade the people, right? So that's why I'm relaunching this. Again, it's going to be November 19th on a Saturday, 2 hours. Yes, it's recorded and will be in a private Facebook group and, on Vimeo, so you can review it as needed, right? So only you can convince yourself and imagine what you can use with this information. How can you use it to persuade other people? Or maybe just mainly to persuade yourself that you can do the things you want to do, close the sales, develop the business, do whatever it is you want to do. Only you can do that, right? And so as you imagine using that material, and as one thing I try to do with everything I teach is I keep it fast, friendly, and instantaneously usable in the real world. I don't like a lot of theory. I don't like stuff that's like hard. My job is not to make me appear smart. My job is to give you information that you can use instantly, right? If you want to go to somewhere where the professors and the teachers want to appear smart, go to a graduate program at any college or university, right? Where usually the people that are teaching it have never done it for a living. And I say that from going through, my master's degree and my doctorate degree. So anyway, but yeah, so, first, maybe you want to use it for personal transformation. Maybe it's business transformation. Maybe it's your relationship transformation. I'm not sure. Only you can imagine that now, right? And always remember, the most powerful thing you can do is imagine the success that you want, right? And begin to use it in ways that can get you towards your goal. Now, I can't do that for you. I can give you the tools that'll simplify it and make it easier to use and have some fun with it, right? And so that's the Secret Psychology of Persuasion, which is November 19th, a Saturday, 12 p.m. to 2 p.m. Eastern. It will be recorded and it's going to be a lot of fun. I will send the link, or we'll post the link when I post this later today. And of course, it is on Facebook. I'm redoing my sites so I can help people grow. So that's just a little bit of what I want to do and the information I wanted to get out. And so let me stop the recording. Very old school.